For those at the back of the room, if you don't want to stand up for an hour, there's plenty of seats at the front here. We're not going to bite, so feel free to come up and grab a seat at the front here. For the Data 3 team, just keep an eye on the numbers, and if we've got customers standing at the back, can you please go to the back of the room or give up your seat for a customer, please? Because I think we're going to be standing room only at this point. Plenty of seats at the front here if you want to come up to the front. There's lots of seats here. You're pretty popular, Mark. All right, we're closing the doors, so if there's spare seats, Data 3 team, you want to grab a seat, feel free. My name's Scott Gosling, I'm the National Practice Manager of Microsoft Solutions, and it's my pleasure to introduce Mark Hindson in the topic today. Mark is one of the best Microsoft security people we've got in the country. He delivers a lot of our security workshops, engaging with our customers. And the brief for this session was, Mark, you've sat in front of a lot of our different customers across federal, state, local, every sector, every size. What are some of the common things you're seeing people get wrong? And Mark delivers the Microsoft Security Workshop engagement. So he, across Sentinel, Defender for Endpoint, the whole entire Microsoft security stack. Mark was also instrumental in building our new managed XDR offer that you've hopefully seen either on the socials or at the Microsoft stand. So if you're interested more to hear more about the managed XDR offer that sort of underpins what we're talking about today, please either go to the Microsoft security stand across the hall or up to the Microsoft stand. We can talk to you about that. But Mark's session is about the common things he sees people get wrong. So Mark's going to talk from his own personal experience and sort of where the common pitfalls are. So Mark, I'm going to throw it over to you and cover the session.
Yep, thanks, Scott. All right, welcome everyone. Just going to start with a little bit of fun. Does anyone recognise this guy up here? Just a quick show of hands. Yep, all right. That's Dennis Nedry from Jurassic Park. It's not, what's his name from Seinfeld? Newman. It is Newman, but it's not Newman up there. So for those that don't know, he was the IT administrator with access to the critical systems of Jurassic Park, who ultimately misused that access. In the movie, his actions led to the catastrophic failure of that park, ultimately letting out all those dinosaurs, and the rest is history. Typical insider threat was Dennis. I guess where this comes through, and I've got a lot of talking through This is exactly what businesses are dealing with today. However, it's not with dinosaurs. It's really trying to protect sensitive data, intellectual property, and security breaches. So I guess today, thank you for coming to my session. We've got half an hour or so. So I'll just talk through some of those lessons that I've learned in the last 3 and a bit years working at Data3 in my role. So I guess where today, as Scott indicated, where do we get the insights from? I've had the privilege, I guess, of working probably with quite a few customers here through, they've morphed in the names, but assessments, workshops, engagements with customers across the nation. So typically they look at, and they've got 2 main flavours. We help customers with threat protection, the other one's around data security, insider risk. But typically they start off, we work with the customer to understand their priorities for risk mitigation. We deploy the tool sets, Microsoft tools, so in the threat protection space, that's the essentially the Defender products, Defender for Endpoint, Office 365, potentially Identity, Defender for Cloud Apps. Can throw in a bit of Sentinel in there to broaden out those threat insights. In the data security, it's really looking at Purview, and we've got some slides to go through that. But once they're deployed, we discover threats, work together to discover the threats that are in their customers' environments, discover vulnerabilities, potentially security misconfigurations, and then work together on how to plan the next step. So what do they look like to mitigate those risks? And that might be to move forward with an upgrade of software or get more of what you already own. I've been lucky enough to work with many of my peers globally, I guess. An example, I'll run through some stuff in, it was about this time last year actually. I was lucky enough to go to Redmond and spend a week with the identity engineering team directly, working with them. So I've had a lot of insights in the last 3 years working with counterparts here locally, internationally, getting insights from them. And then I guess most of this is working with customers like yourself on a day-to-day basis around the nation. So with that, there's kind of 4 major pain points that we'll go through today. The first one's around insider risk, data security. So how do we detect and prevent threats before they cause damage? Next one's around identity and access management. So how do we ensure people have only the access they need and when they need it? Threat protection, how do we detect and stop attacks early? And the last one's around incident response. So how do we actually, once we detect it, how can we quickly prevent future attacks? So we'll dig a little bit deeper into the insider threats and data security. So when we talk about this, I guess the challenge for most organisations, this is a big thing that more so in the last probably 18 months that I'm working with customers. In all honesty, it was probably only about 20% of my time before that. But so how do we prevent this type of issues? So employees, contractors all have access to data. We're sharing data. Sensitive data around. I guess some misuse it, like the Dennis Nedrys of the world, and others mishandle it by accident. I think this is the one stat I've got here. So the Information Commissioner report from the first half of last year, there was 527 data breaches reported in Australia. That's a 9% increase of the period before. My day-to-day talks, I guess, with customers, it's high on their agenda, and we'll go into, I guess, why, but most businesses in reality lack the real-time visibility of who's accessing, moving, and sharing sensitive data. And without the proper tools in place, it's very hard to automate that risk detection. Insider threats is actually a fair bit of that 9% increase. So that's a major concern across organisations. And then I guess with all the new laws coming out, Privacy Act, different cyber laws, it's putting increasing pressure on organisations to meet those compliance obligations. I guess failing to do that, presents reputational damage, financial loss, and sometimes penalties. So how do we solve this problem, I guess, in a Microsoft world? It's Purview. I'll just go through the three major things that we're helping customers achieve those objectives. So the main thing is data itself doesn't move through or out of an organisation. It's actually the people that move that data. It can be sharing an email, copying things to USB drive, third-party SaaS apps, network shares, etc. So the first cab off the rank, information protection. It's about looking at protecting data at rest. Has a few different functions. For those in the government world, we're looking at protective markings essentially. So headers, footers, relating to that information security policy, whether the data's unclassified, official sensitive, etc. From the business world, you've got you can put other controls in place. I guess that ultimately we're trying to protect that data at rest. And that's through the use of sensitivity labels. So users actually ultimately will apply sensitivity labels, and then on the back of those labels dictates, hopefully, is how it's configured to protect data holistically, is through rights management we can actually say who is authenticated and authorised to actually open and decrypt that data. If they're not, and those labels live and travel with that particular data. Next one's data loss prevention, so preventing data from being sent in flight. So the first one's at rest, the other one's in flight, preventing that sensitive data from being potentially emailed, shared out through OneDrive for Business, etc. So those first two actually are part of E3. So the biggest thing that I spend a lot of time working with customers is we need to uplift to E5 to start protecting our data. That's not the case. So as long as you're an E3 customer and your data's within that 365 ecosystem, you can apply sensitivity labels to it to protect data at rest, and then you've got access to data loss prevention policies. Insider risk management is, at a simple level, it's using machine-based learning to understand what the users are actually doing with that sensitive data and profiling that user. So if something falls out of the ordinary, there's risk percentage applied to that, and I'll go into what we can do to that risk shortly. So typically this is where we take our customers for. This is the first part of the journey. So using, when we combine both information protection and DLP together, we're able to discover sensitive data and then apply sensitivity labels across it to protect it at rest and then in flight. By combining insider risk management and information protection, so understanding what is in that content as far as sensitive information goes. It could be PII data such as driver's license numbers, passport numbers, financial credit card numbers, etc. Get a real understanding of what users are actually doing with that data. And then lastly, and this is where kind of the whole solution kind of closes out actually, is when you combine insider risk management with data loss prevention. We're able to adaptively apply data loss prevention controls and even extend it into conditional access policies actually. So adaptively apply to block leakage of that data. And I've got a couple of slides, we'll just go through that really quick because it is potentially a hard thing just to grasp. But users have really three main risk levels if they're flagged as a risky user. First one's minor risk. So with minor risk and introducing that data loss prevention policy in flight, we can actually just pop up a policy tip. So in Outlook, Word, just pop up a note to the user to say maybe you should think twice about doing this, not actually interrupting the user's workflow. If we move typically into moderate risk, so there is something kind of out of the ordinary there with that user, but we still may not want to block whatever they're doing, so we can actually enable a block action, so prevent that email from being sent, but allow the users to think about it and then override it should they want to. If they're coming in, potentially a high-risk user, they're coming in from outside, we can actually present through conditional access policies the terms of use to remind them what they should be doing with their data. The elevated risk, which is the highest risk level, typically something's kind of gone majorly wrong with that user, so they are potentially maliciously, or more likely maliciously, exfiltrating data. We can automatically block, so lock that data down. It can be on the endpoint, prevent them from printing, copying to USB, sharing data out through a third-party SaaS site. Through conditional access, just block that user from even authenticating into the platform. And lastly, through the use of data lifecycle management, in case that user wants to, it is a malicious insider and they want to remove evidence, we'll say, we can prevent that to lock that in place for future forensic analysis. So on one of those data security engagements that I did working with a customer somewhere around Australia, we were enabled the tools, so we started to gain insights of data in flight, where their sensitive data is across the ecosystem, back on on-prem as well, SMB shares. And part of that engagement is to enable insider risk management. During that exercise, we wait about 2 weeks, 3 weeks, understand risks, and then present that back to the customer. And in this particular engagement, it was quite interesting that the stakeholders went a bit funny when we were presenting it back. The users are anonymised, so we can't actually tell who those users are, but they can go back and actually see who they were. And it turned out that there was a malicious insider in the organisation. And from my understanding is that particular staff member accepted another job at a competitor, yet to resign, and they were effectively drip feeding quite sensitive data from that organisation and then giving it to their direct competitor. And it was only through the use of that data security engagement that we're doing that actually highlighted that to the organisation. It's my understanding that employee was instantly terminated once it was determined that it was a he did own up to what he was doing. So anyone that I guess is looking for this, we offer these on a day-to-day basis for customers. 9 times out of 10 they're funded. You probably get a lot of value out of doing those engagements. Next one's around identity access management. So we'll let's go and dig a bit deeper into that. So one of the 4 main things that I've kind of summarised that I'm finding with organisations still today is their granting of excessive permissions. Okay, than what they really should be having. I guess at a high level, if that account is compromised, they're going to give full access to whatever sensitive systems that account has access to. In the Microsoft lens, we can tackle that with privileged identity management is one of those, and access reviews to close that gap. So only give that user, remove standing privilege and only give them elevated privilege when they need it. That can go through workflows as well. Next one, still a major one. I'm not surprised, but multi-factor authentication, especially with Enter ID. 365 is probably under control, but there's still a plethora of different third-party SaaS apps that organisations still aren't protecting and exposing business to risk. And the number one cause of account takeovers today is still weak passwords. So to get around that, conditional access, migrate those applications across to Entra ID. And ultimately, we're trying to help customers go passwordless to get rid of that password altogether. Next one's around orphaned accounts, dormant accounts. I guess just at a quick high-level show of hands, how many organisations truly have solved the problem of automating that user life cycle through the organisation, through movers, joiners, movers, leavers? A couple of hands at the back. Yep. So typically that would be your sale points or something like that, I guess. There's still many organisations that don't. It's manual, so manually service desk requests, give access to permissions X, Y, Z into applications. We're finding many businesses are literally failing to remove access to employees or contractors that even left the company, exposing to massive risk. So on the Microsoft front, the solution that we're building momentum, I guess it's relatively new. When I was in Redmond a year ago, spending the whole time with the team around what's called now as Entra Identity Governance, ID Governance. And that tool set, you can do a lot with Entra ID Plan 1, Plan 2, but to ultimately automate that life cycle. So when the user would join the organisation, there'd be some type of HR process. We're able to automate the provisioning of that identity, giving it access into certain applications, groups, whatever the case may be. And then as that user moves through the organisation, removing them out of certain applications, access out of certain applications, out of groups, out of different SharePoint sites, whatever the case is. And then ultimately as they leave the organisation, to remove access, automate and guarantee the removal access of that contractor or guest account or employee. Still a big thing around the lack of, I guess, identity monitoring. I think I was standing up here 2 years ago, maybe last year ago, and did a presentation of around Defender for Identity. Active Directory is still around for most organisations. There's very little that I speak to day to day that have been lucky enough to get rid of it. But still that lack of monitoring of what's happening in Active Directory, looking for suspicious logins, lateral movement is still a big thing and a big risk within organisations. So Defender for Identity solves that problem. Into the Active Directory, and there's other identity products within Entra that can mitigate risk with the cloud products or cloud identity. We'll just go into threat protection. So AI, we're all, I guess most of us nowadays, or hopefully, are using AI for the good. I use it, Copilot, and other third-party Gen AI tools. But those tools aren't just being used by traditional users, they're heavily used by threat actors becoming more and more sophisticated. I'll leave that up there, but there's a magnitude of around there that those threat actors are actually using generative AI. They're getting creative with it and using it in persistent ways. I've got a couple of examples. There's Forest Blizzard out of Russia. They're using it or have been known to use it just to do basic scripting, file manipulation, and really creating complex regular expressions, which is a good use case. There's another threat actor group out of North Korea. They're using it. Known as Emerald Sleet. They're interacting with those large language models to understand vulnerabilities, do the scripting, and more so to use generative AI to create content for spear phishing. Disconnected security tools. In a Microsoft world, it's all good. I mean, you've got that single pane of glass, but we're still seeing, talking to customers on a day-to-day basis, even in the if you are in the Microsoft world holistically, but fragmented security tools are still a big problem for an organisation. I guess with the looping back to Jurassic Park, if you remember that movie, there was no unified view of that park. Each of those systems within that park were all operated separately, and as they went down, different dinosaurs escaped. They ultimately had no unified view of the entire park itself, and that's still what's happening with organisations today. So how do we solve that with customers? Due to those fragmented systems, I guess, teams are becoming completely overwhelmed. Too many alerts. There's just not enough skilled professionals, security professionals globally. It's still a big problem. So through the use of, I guess, Security Copilot in the Microsoft world, if you're in if you've unified Sentinel and the XDR, or even just using it with XDR, you can use it with pretty much any security product now. Purview, Entra, you're able to automate those investigations, prioritise critical alerts, getting that AI to start being that middle kind of SecOps type person to relieve, I guess, staff. Some of the things that it can be done, it can produce a report instead of spending hours, days potentially for the operations team to produce a report up to management. That product can do it in seconds. I guess with all that combined, we're still, I'm still involved working with customers nationally. I don't actually think there's been any here in Queensland, which is great, but really by the time staff can actually get together with those fragmented tools, piece things back together, it's typically too late. We're hearing over and over again that organisations have had some malicious threat actor inside the organisation. So without those Microsoft tools where all their signals are shared across the platform to understand the threat, and then to be to automatically mitigate that risk through an automated response, without those type tools, it's really too late. So just to summarise, Defender XDR, that's all the Defender products with Sentinel. Typically we'll solve those problems. We work day in, day out with customers helping to adopt and migrate. And I've got a couple of slides just to go through the XDR product that Scott talked about across that. Security is not a technology problem, it's really a business problem, and it's kind of changing. Probably in the last 10 years or so. Traditionally, business was fragmented off from security. It's really a business problem today. And with that, we know all of you are facing a massive amount of cyber attacks, ransomware, phishing, potentially insider threats. Budget constraints is huge. The Jurassic Park Hammond, I guess, cut costs, employing that Nedry, kind of manage everything. So how do we help customers manage budget constraints when it comes to security? I spoke about the lack of knowledgeable personnel or skilled personnel. It is a major thing. We're talking about it all the time. We've got lack of staff. How far can we go with X amount of budget to mitigate risk? What are we open to? Ultimately, how do we solve this lack of staff problem? And this is a thing globally, lack of staff. And even if you get staff, you'll find it's hard to retain them. And IT environments are still complex. There's still nothing simple. The big challenge that businesses are facing that with fragmented IT environments, disconnected security tools, it's making that response into those threats slower and slower, less effective. So a lot of my role, I guess, is helping customers identify and consolidate tools, be it in the data, protecting the data landscape, coming off third-party DLP products, consolidating those across to Microsoft, maximising the investment in that space, or moving across from different EDR, etc., over to Defender for Endpoint, Office 365. Solidifying that potentially with Sentinel for that single pane of glass for the SIEM SOAR, and then augmenting in the AI to provide that extra lending hand across that. That's all in a single pane of glass today. So for those that don't know, Sentinel is Microsoft SIEM SOAR. It's all been integrated. It's all a single pane of glass now for the security operations team. So just quickly recap, I guess, Jurassic Park really, nothing's changed, I guess, from the Jurassic Park world. Threats were evolving. If you remember in Jurassic Park, they had those raptors that kind of worked out how to open the doors and get through that. Threat actors are doing that today, especially with Gen AI. If Jurassic Park did have insider risk management with Microsoft, hopefully they would have detected that Nedry had unrestricted access. No one was monitoring his movement across that organisation and flagged that and mitigated that risk. Identity and access management. Again, Microsoft Zero Trust. It's all around the identity. Again, Nedry shouldn't have had all the keys to the fort. Threat detection or prevention. Ultimately, relating that back, and it's traditional with day-to-day that we're talking with customers that Hammond, the old guy with that walking stick, that the founder of Jurassic Park, he really didn't understand that he had a problem until it was too late. Automated incident response. It was clear that Jurassic Park really didn't have a key security strategy, a response plan, or even the right technology to mitigate that risk. Unfortunately, we're seeing more and more of that with customers, and that's up to, if you're a Data 3 customer, we'd love to help you tackle that challenge. So just to wrap up, we've got a couple of minutes. So Data 3, you'll see it across, come and speak to me, but we've been working with Microsoft, backed by our managed security partner, Security HQ, come up with this XDR offering. It covers the endpoint, SaaS apps, the M365 ecosystem, the identity. So if we productize these, it's Defender for Endpoint, Defender for Cloud Apps, Defender for Office 365, Defender for Identity, or there's a couple of other cloud products in there. They come in bundled offerings, so they're really quick adoption pieces. It's pretty much automated, so easily migrate from one product to the other. In my personal opinion, it's cheap, it's great, it's highly automated. There's defined outcomes, specific scopes, and everything's standardised. So you know you're going to get the right controls in place to mitigate risk, and then the right response team to back that up. For those that don't know, we're Data 3. We've got a SOC here based out of Brisbane, which is supplemented by a magnitude of different security staff globally. So I guess for that product, if we just go back, can come and see me on the stand. I'm at the Microsoft stand, happy to talk to people about that, but I encourage anyone to go and see the team on the security stand. There they'll talk around that. They can talk about different SOC offerings if you want. This is a quick go to market. I think it's actually it's a really good value for customers trying to tackle that whole security landscape. So with that, I guess just talking how Data3 can help. I spoke about some of those security workshops. They're good value. Encourage you to reach out to your reps. Steve Milan from Queensland in the security practice. Threat protections, looking at the XDR products. You've got data security. We kind of went through that. Information protection, data loss prevention, insider risk management. We've got a big prof services team nationally here in Queensland. Do many major security products, mitigating risk that we spoke about. And then you've got the managed stock. There's a couple of QR codes. I think they just take you to our website. With that, we've got, I think, about 5 minutes or less. So I just want to thank everyone for coming. Hopefully you've got some insights in there. I'll be at the Microsoft stand out in the booth. Feel free to come up and talk to me during the day. More than happy to have a chat, but probably just throw out, is there any questions or anything that, I know with security normally no one puts their hands up. I did talk at ASA, it was quite interesting, around generative AI, and not one person put their hand up. Yes, sir.
Getting engagement in the organisation to see what you see.
Yep.
And obviously get key stakeholders to understand what you see and translating that into actual things. Everyone's very scary about it.
Yep.
Actually translating that from the technical field
To real business risk.
because obviously it's all words on a paper.
Yep.
But getting a clear understanding of the transition there. Resources for that would be obviously useful.
Yep.
Data can be actively involved, but even just stay that groundwork to get engagement, understanding because you put a platform there, the tools are there.
Yep.
Turn a few switches on, but obviously your expertise can use those there. So.
Yeah, so I guess from a Data3 point of view, that's a great question, thank you, or even you've solved the answer in that question. But a lot from the security practice here in Queensland, we work heavily with the cyber team at Business Aspects. That's the consulting arm. So a lot of the times we're working hand in hand. So they're able to easily communicate back to the business and identify that from a business point of view, identifying and communicating the risk that way. Whereas typically the prof services team would be delivering the controls to mitigate the actual risk itself. Yeah. But that is very hard to get that across to those stakeholders to understand why should we put our hands in our pockets potentially to unlock those funds if they don't understand of the risk they're trying to mitigate against. Yep. Any others? No, so go and see Mitch Field. He's out on the security stand. Richard Dornhart, Steve. We've got a lot of people out on the security stand about the XDR offering. Feel free to come and see myself. I'm at the Microsoft stand, which is further down. Happy to help go through any of the problems or just have a chat. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mark. Really appreciate that. We're here to help you solve problems. So Mark pointed out a few deficiencies. Reach out and we can help. Thank you.